something out there. For normal price, but then telling the consumer that it's on sale, which is again like, and hopefully you guys can see kind of like how there's like a philosophy behind this with me. This is again this is doing something that is misleading. You are intentionally misleading the customer, which I think is effectively fraud.
This, and a big shout out to one of our Belgrade Games members, Neo Nebulosa, for directing us to this stuff. So the European Game Developers Federation and the Video Games Europe, or two groups basically, they've published a joint statement that expresses their disappointment with the findings. Let's read their statement. Quote, "We are disappointed by the lack of engagement from the CPC network in creating these principles, which introduce new legal theories and misguided interpretations of EU consumer law that will create confusion and disruption for European customers." Sidebar. Oh no, we're going to be disrupted by sort of annoying predatory stuff going away. What an awful
Yeah, this is awful. Wow. So wait a minute. The consumers are going to be confused because we're removing the confusing elements of the game.
Disruption. Back to the statement. It will also present a challenge to the industry's future growth and could even deprive millions of consumers access to their favorite games. Now that last bit is
No, it won't. If your game is not financially viable without you taking advantage of and misleading customers, then you don't have a financially viable product. It's that simple. If the way for you to do business is unethical and breaks laws, then you can't afford to do business. It's that simple.
Interesting thing. So understandably, right, these groups representing the most powerful players in the industry did quite like things the way that they were. Change is dangerous, especially to the bottom line, and especially change like this. But in a way, they're not inherently wrong. It is true that audiences do actually understand premium currencies by and large right now, and when implementing...
I think that audiences understand premium currencies, but children don't. And these games are advertised towards children. And if every single audience understood premium currencies, you wouldn't see as much obfuscation and how many... Because like if there is... So think about this logically, right? If audiences understood premium currencies to a degree that it was not an effective tool of obfuscation, the companies would no longer have any premium currencies because the extra effort in designing and programming values for them wouldn't be worth it because they wouldn't make any extra money. So by the fact that they're continuing to use premium currencies, that defines the reality that premium currencies are effective in getting people to cause and spend more money. It's an obvious lie. It's an obvious lie, and you can instantly think about this by using just the slightest amount of logic.
Currencies, these companies were following, you know, their best legal guidance, and now that guidance has changed. I guess just like how so many phones had like a bespoke charging cable until the rules just changed in the middle of the game. So now they've got to get used to these new rules. And what'll sting is the impact on their bottom line. They're not wrong about the potential impacts of all of this. Now, big companies like Ubisoft can probably absorb the costs of any legal challenges or damage from rebuilding their premium currency systems. They'll probably spend a whole lot to try and figure out ways around these principles. As for smaller companies...
There's always going to be a cat and mouse game, but that's the reason why regulations and like things like this have to be agile.
You may not find that so easy. But where things will be dramatic is the group's final warning, because it's the most threatening one. It's the idea that players in the EU may just be locked out of video games. They'd say with...
They're going to lock the European Union out of video games? Who the fuck believes that? They can't do that. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. Bye-bye summons? Well, what I'm saying is that these companies, like the European Union, is like, I bet in a lot of these cases, a massive chunk of the pie. They can't afford to just abandon that market. That totally changes all of their financials. And also, by the way, if abandoning that market is more advantageous than making equitable microtransaction systems, that is the strongest argument I can see for why those equitable microtransaction systems need to be added. If you can literally abandon the EU because now you have to play fair, maybe there's a big problem with the way that you were playing.
A game like Overwatch, right? They would simply choose to geo-restrict access to the game rather than change their monetization model or to just continue the game as normal and risk EU lawsuits. It could just be they look at the EU and think, you know what, we make enough from the States and other countries, we really don't need them. That being said, the EU population is kind of huge. Overall GDP is obviously...
And also, the EU is one of the highest GDP areas in the world, with the highest amount of like disposable income. So like, for example, there are a lot of South American people that spend a lot of time playing these like free-to-play games, but they don't spend a lot of money because, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the countries they live in just don't have that much money in them. But Europe, China, and America, and Korea, and a handful of other ones, that's where the money is. That's where you really get the players that are spending $100 a month, right? So like, you can't just trade, like, you can't go from like 400 million Europeans to 400 million South Americans and maintain the same profit margins. Saudi Arabia, yeah, exactly. Like, I wonder, okay, so let's think about Dubai, and let's think about Zimbabwe. I wonder who is going to have more GDP per capita that's going to be able to spend on these games. Ah, geez, dude. Ah, man. Ooh, what could it be? And so think about that with everything. It's common fucking sense.
A very, very flawed.
Yeah, they can't do that.
As an example, right? Just Googling this here in 2024, the EU's nominal GDP was about 17.9 trillion, and 1/6 of global nominal GDP, which is quite a lot of money, and a hell of a lot of that GDP globally will be in other countries, like say China.
For context, I could be a little bit outdated with this. America's GDP is between 20 and 25 trillion, I believe, and China's GDP is between, I think, 13 and 17 trillion GDP. So the European Union is gigantic.
You know, where a lot of these companies will not be able to go in and directly monetize. That could actually mean that they will feel the need to change. And in a way, there are two wolves inside me who are fighting, right? I suppose one of them is the pragmatic wolf. The other one is the almost like the last vestiges of some sort of libertarian idealism that says, let the market decide. If the gamers...
I have no problem with letting the market decide, but the whole issue with a free market is that a free market implies that everybody is entering into it with equal consent and equal knowledge and equal understanding. The big problem is that a lot of these companies exist inside of the context of marketing to children and marketing to demographics that are not able to do that by the nature of the category they are, mainly children. So like, I think that the free market idea, the like whole libertarian concept of that, immediately falls apart. Because like, again, and the reason why is that, like, I used to be a libertarian. I wouldn't really say that I am now, but there's a lot of values that they have that I also agree with. But there's like the entire idea of like the consent and the non-aggression principle. This is something that is primary and like this is the highest regard and the most important thing. So if you're violating or not respecting consent, that is something that overrules any sort of free market ideology.
Like the bad practices, the gamers shall not partake in them, and the market will solve the problem. And I wish that was true.
Libertarian is code word for homosexual? Is that true, guys?
But I feel there's almost a faux idealism in so much of that, because these psychological hooks, these psychological triggers, they do actually work. We're in a world where you can very easily make, I think, some sound enough, philosophical arguments. Very much.
This is it's just stupid. Like, the entire idea that these tricks don't work is the same thing as like, oh, marketing doesn't work. Listen, guys, I've run marketing campaigns. I've seen the back end, and I've been on the front end. Marketing campaigns work extremely well.
Regulation and all of that, and I totally get that. I'm fairly sympathetic towards that in many cases, but the thing is,
they wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't working.
We've also got to be pragmatic, and a part of that is being a bit humble about the human condition. And the fact of the matter is, these practices are not popular. People do not like them.
No, nobody likes this.
People's behavior does continue.
That's another very good point. Nobody likes this.
And these obviously are bad. And as people who enjoy video games, we see that as these types of practices derive more and more revenue, they then become what the companies focus on. And that is worse for the actual video games.
It is. It definitely lowers the quality of the product. While I think that a company has the autonomy to decide to make a worse quality product, it's undeniable that stores become a metaphor of the tail wagging the dog, where whenever the store is put into the game, it becomes the primary decision-making factor of how the game is designed after that, because everything is built around making sure that people go back to the store.
Because I suppose in a way, how much of game industry revenue comes essentially from psychological manipulation and these various business strategies?
At least 10%, because the moment that you couldn't use psychological manipulation and the practice of doing so was put at risk in China, Tencent lost 10% of its value overnight, and they had to resend it because it was so cataclysmic for the electronics industry.
That are designed to rake
and I
in
think
revenue
it's more than that.
in a way that's not like really tied
Tencent's a huge
to
company.
the experience of a game that you purchase.
I'd say 40%.
Just share of that increase and increase and increase, and it's no wonder that as that is increased, the rest of us have become less and less satisfied with games. So in a way, if this does hurt the revenue of a bunch of companies and unfortunately leads to a bunch of job losses because these types of practices...
If your job exists inside of the context of taking advantage of people and manipulating them out of their money in a way that they didn't consent to, you don't deserve to have a job.
Are no longer viable.
Too bad.
Good riddance.
Rip Bozo. That's
Good
right.
riddance, absolutely. Let the companies fail, let those jobs go down. How we run things should be a dialogue between the private and public sectors, and in a case like this, I think it's an example of the public sector, right? The people essentially saying, we actually do not like this practice. We don't want this to be the rules of the game.
Yeah.
We want the rules of the game to change, to be more robust.
Also, like, we really need to get ahead of the curve on this with automobiles. Because as everything becomes computer in automobiles, you're seeing certain subscription services that are withheld from cars, and I find this to be like an incredibly dangerous precedent to set, and I'm very, very concerned about this.
Yeah,
BMW heated seats.
The market will, once it adapts to that, find a solution, and if the new rule set is a better rule set, then that should be a net good. But of course, none of this will matter if there's no enforcement.
That's right.
Enforcement, because one country making a digital consumer policy often will find difficulty in enforcing it because you're just one little guy, Mr. Belgium, right? That's why even though Belgium has banned...
Belgium and the Netherlands both have rules against this.
loot boxes, so many games simply just ignore that and still operate in the country. Like in World of Warcraft, in the new raid, one of the bosses is basically a slot machine boss. We always have the joke that for the person in our team that's in Belgium, that boss just can't drop any loot. I don't know, there's an EU firewall or a Belgian firewall.
Yeah.
That's a joke, but you get the point. As much as...
Except it's not a joke when you're talking about Balatro, because it gets rated 18+. Meanwhile, you have FIFA that's advertised to 3-year-olds, and it has gacha and gambling in it. But because Balatro uses cards and not actual gambling, but because they call it a different name, somehow it's okay.
Many people have kind of went, oh, Belgium, you, take him down. It hasn't really mattered, because it's just Belgium, just one little guy. It's a bit different here, though. And that's
why the European Union is so strong, is because of collective bargaining. I would assume that that's probably one of the big reasons why the European Union exists, is for the best interests of all those countries to be able to collectively bargain for things that are in their best interest. Of course.
EU is, 26
I mean, really, it's the same as the United
countries,
States.
and also Belgium. In 2023, it was worth 25.7 billion euro in game revenues. That's a lot of revenues.
Whoa.
And we know that their legislators are willing to take on the likes of Apple and Google when their rulings are being defied. They have done that. But more than that, the companies inside the EU are, part of a big global network, and that does mean that whenever USB-C cables become standardized in the EU, they then become standardized everywhere because of manufacturing limitations. I'm sure Apple would have loved to have continued just selling people Lightning adapters in the States, but ultimately they seem to have saw the way the wind was blowing and made the big change to USB-C. No one wanted to have, of course, a whole factory just making EU-only phones. And again, thinking about the impact that would have had on the, the whole ecosystem of manufacturing partners, blah, blah, blah.
Well, so, whenever you have a manufacturing line for anything, you have a combination of fixed costs versus variable cost. And a factory that's only producing something that you can only sell to a small amount of people, that fixed cost will create a situation where you won't be able to make that money back at a ratio that exceeds the amortization and the devaluation of the products used to manufacture the products. So, like, for example, like the machines, the stamps, the printers, the assembly line, all of that. So if you create a small enough target audience, you effectively destroy the economics of certain types of products. No. And by the way, guys, everybody understands this. I know you might not understand it in an economic concept, but I guarantee you've played video games. Like, we played Schedule 1. Schedule 1 operates under the same premise as well. This is a very easy to understand premise.
You can
Even
see
though
how
it might seem complex.
It does kind of make sense. We can see those software examples where it's not really the same thing. It's not like you can just go and get an emulator for your iPhone in America, but you can in the EU. So the question then is, will developers want to risk losing a large slice of that EU-derived money? Or will they simply have to ship a cut-down and less exploitative version of their in-game monetization to European countries? If so, it puts them in a fun little dilemma where the American gamer may get a transparently worse deal than, say, the European gamer.
No, because as soon as American audiences see that Europe does this, America will also, like, players in America and consumers in America will ask for the same thing. And I think this is, like, for comparison, this is one thing that if you look at, like, RFK, and, like, I don't want to get, like, super political about this, right? But a lot of the things that, like, he's advocating for, like, why the fuck is it that in America there's, like, 50 ingredients for something, but, for cornflakes, but in, Belgium or, I don't know, England, there's 7. That's a really good fucking question. And so, like, there's, like, and this is an ongoing conversation that is happening at this very moment. So, like, we joke around about Europe having, like, you guys have, like, weird speech laws, right? But you guys really nail it with these consumer protection laws. And, like, hey, I think we should steal them. Like, we should 100%. Like, Europe is by far and away way better on consumer protections.
And then you can say, well, compare your store to mine. My one is a bit
You're
more
welcome.
respectful.
Yeah, thank you.
Doesn't have as much FOMO, doesn't have as many tricksy bundles and things that basically feel like a scam. And that'll be a bad look.
Yeah.
That's the dilemma that these companies face, and in a way, it's all thanks to a game about horses. So,
Got 'em.
hero of the
Fucking
day,
got 'em.
horse girls. I guess that's a thing.
Fuck 'em.
Okay, tell you what though, if you want another story, another big, grand,
Yeah.
juicy story, check out this one. It also hits the EU, but it also hits corporate melodrama, which is honestly some of my favorite.
Oh boy, another Ubisoft Dead video. I like the sound of that. We'll watch that tomorrow. And yeah, I'll probably have to look at that. And so anyway, I don't like consumer protections. If the consumer is too dumb, they deserve to lose. Just my opinion. I know it's not popular. I think that you make a great point that consumers should be. A consumer being stupid is one thing, but a consumer being lied to is something else. And so anyway, and I want to go ahead and let me see if I can find like your message and let's explore this thinking. So like if a company charges you $100, for example, and then they give you $50 worth of the product, do you think that you should have any recourse for that? Like you spent $100, you expected to get $100 worth of stuff. You're actually only getting 50. By the way, massive W, Bellior video, huge fucking supporter. I love this guy, obviously. I've watched his videos for, I think, what is it, fucking 10 years now since WoW. So make sure to give the video a like. I love his new videos. I think he covers a lot of topics I totally fucking agree with, right? And so, yeah, make sure to give it a like, give him a sub and everything. Yeah, I completely fucking agree with what he's saying here. So let me read what it fair. Yeah, exactly, right? And so like consumer protections, like this is the problem, is that consumer protections, everybody agrees with consumer protections. Like for example, if you buy a phone and then the phone blows up, somebody has to be accountable for that, right? Like everything, like again, people that don't like regulation, that are complaining about it on the internet, are like people that are fish complaining about water. Your keyboard is regulated. Your mouse is regulated. The monitor that you're looking at is regulated. The PC that you're using is regulated. The internet itself is regulated. The ISP that is giving you internet is regulated. Everything about this is regulated. Like down, like the cord that you have the internet go through is regulated. So yeah, 2-year warranty by law. Yeah, exactly, right? And so everything is, yeah, you're sitting in a chair that's regulated. Everything is. And so to be against this is, I think, very, very short-sighted. I think this is absolutely a good thing, and I'm really happy to see the EU taking some accountability for it. I'm very happy to see it. And hopefully we can do the same thing. We can follow their lead. And I'm glad to see the Europe doing it as fast as possible. We're going to start with this one. This is the reveal. This is the big reveal. Big game. Huge game. One of the biggest games. A bit of a bias. Bungie fan. Played a lot of Halo back in the day. Is that on the moon? That was cool. I like that. That's cool.
Vast and trunkless ledges of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that it swung to well those passions red which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, lifeless things. And the heart that fed.
I think the character design is pretty weak. I actually think that the world building and like the atmosphere of the game is really good. But like, I'm making a lot of comparisons in my head right now with like this and the Death Stranding 2 trailer. And like, it's really hard to be as good as Kojima. But like, outside of this character design, I think that it at least reminded me of that. But these characters just look like toys. The design isn't... It doesn't have any edge to it. I just don't like it. I wouldn't make a decision on the game for that reason, but that's just my opinion. Like, this is like, it's okay, right? But like, if you go and you compare this to like the level of quality of the Kojima characters inside of Death Stranding 2, you just really, you're looking at two different types of situations. And I think that like characters being aesthetic and looking good is a prime value. You need that. You have to have that. And this is just not really there. They look too clean. They do. And like, so let me get a bit farther before I start going on tangents.
Welcome once again. Once again. As a new shell.
Like, this is okay. I think this is a decent design.
I mean, it feels just like what it is, right? Like $1 trillion. Like $1 trillion.
Sakaguchi Genetics sent a reminder. Your shell repayment is coming up and will be charged
Because
against...
like, you can see, like, I mean, you've clearly got like a convergence here between like, you know, again, like the Kojima Death Stranding aesthetic and like Cyberpunk. You know, I mean, you look at like this is kind of like Lucy from Cyberpunk and like the anime. But I'm just not... am I crazy? I just don't think it has that edge to it.
line of credit.
Yeah, I know. Do you mind if we skip the formalities this time? Got a big contract waiting down there, so...
Understood. Let's proceed with your grounding exercise. Are you familiar with this item?
That's my lucky charm. Yeah. It's supposed to be my lucky charm.
Can you identify her?
Yeah, that's... my mom. That's your mother, your mother.
Now, consider this. Do you recognize this child?
Is that her?
Who are you? I don't know.
It's you.
What? Really?
I think that that sequence is like a good example of when show don't tell would have been probably a better way to demonstrate like what that was. I think that if there was like almost no dialogue there, it would have been a lot better. I think that in a lot of cases, like that's true, is that less dialogue is better.
Hey, what's that you're always tuned into? Worth anything?
I don't know, but I like it. It speaks to me.
Let me listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that there's like a degree of like a style clash where you have like, you know, Unreal 5 hyper realistic backgrounds with like these cartoonish, almost Fortnite style objects and characters. It's not a big deal, right? Like, I'm just kind of talking about it.
You ever wonder what happened to these people?
It's not my business.
And this music is. You'll have a tough time finding a buyer.
Good. It's not for sale. Give it to me.
It's an extraction shooter, by the way. That was good. I like that.
And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Despair. Nothing beside remain. Nothing beside remain. Round the decay of that colossal wreck. Round the decay of that boundless wreck. Boundless, alone and level sands. Stretch far away.
Do you recognize this child?
I don't know. Is that me?
Man. I think that a lot of the negative sentiment for this is that this should have been an 11. It's a 7. It's a 7 or an 8. But this should have been an 11. Because, like, I can see, like, inside of this that, like, if you gave this to a person that was, like, in my opinion, a little bit more deranged or creative, I actually think this trailer would have been fucking phenomenal. this trailer felt like it was an advertisement for a Kojima game, but it didn't have Kojima. That's the way that I feel about it. And like it's almost really, really good. Like I think that like the aesthetic and like the vibe of it, it's really interesting because like especially at the beginning of this was really, really good. Like I really like this a lot. And then as soon as they started introducing the characters, it just I felt like it turned from something that had like a certain degree of like gripping interest, and it just turned like kind of weird. Character design's horrible, yeah, and cool trailer, but it felt
Gilded.
telling someone to speak English. So this is nuts.
Your games aren't good enough.
Felt hollow? Yeah, it did. And so, I mean, I'm not as negative about the trailer as a lot of other people are, but I can see why people are so negative. And there's something that's like very uncanny about the characters, and it makes it look like they aren't really kind of supposed to be there. And it's hard for me to describe, I think. But yeah, looks plastic. Yeah, but like that I want to say something more than that, right? So people are negative because it's the cool thing to do. Nothing is okay in this world anymore. The art direction's not cohesive. It clashes and it doesn't pass the vibe check. I mean, I guess, like, I mean, yeah, I definitely think, like, which is weird because, like, am I the only person who thought that, like the first, like, 2 minutes of this trailer was absolute cinema, in my opinion. Like, this was, like, fucking amazing. This was so good. And I really liked it a lot. And then it just kind of got weird with these characters. Yeah, no, I mean, that's it. And there's a lot of people who haven't really liked the character design. Marilyn Manson vibes are putting me off. Not interesting. I can see why you say it. They stand out, but in the way a Polygon character in Resident Evil stood out. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing we play as the newly produced bots. The woman interview robot does it to check if the bot is stable. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot of, like, I mean, overall, like, after watching this trailer, would I be encouraged to buy this game? The answer, if you want me to be honest, is yes. Yes, I think that this is good enough that I would probably buy the game based off of this. Now, and also, like, I have pretty low standards for games, and I'd pretty much try it out, see what it's like. That's kind of the mindset that I usually have. Try it out, see what it's like, and if it sucks, I stop playing it. But I think that for people that have like a lot less free time than I do, and maybe even also disposable income, because it'll cost money, the game will cost money, like $40 or something like that, then I think that they're going to exercise more discretion than I will. It's artsy, though. Well, like, the thing is that it's artsy, but it's artsy in a way that I think is indulgent, and it's not exciting. Like, again, if you compare this, I think it's a great way to look at this is to compare it, is like this trailer here, right? Like, I feel like this, like these two have like very much the same energy. And maybe I'm crazy, but like I think so. And you can see, like, with a character like this, for example, there's something about this that's like more compelling and interesting. Just in terms of the design. And I'm not talking about like the graphics quality, but like it's just more compelling and interesting. A lot of the character design, actually, this is a good way for me to put it. Some of the character design in this game, it reminds me a lot of when you first get Photoshop and you apply every single like filter to text to make it look as cool as possible, but then you realize it's like hard to read and see what's going on with it. Does that make sense? Like, you guys did this whenever you were kids, right? Yeah. It's over design. That's their goal. Well, if that's their goal, they succeeded. And so anyway, that's basically it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the gameplay trailer.
Marathon is a team-based extraction shooter set around the mysterious and cutthroat world of Tau Ceti 4. You are a runner, a cybernetic mercenary who's given up their human form for a biosynthetic shell with unique abilities and stats, capable of both tactical and fast-paced combat. Here you'll fight in a crew of up to 3 players across a variety of zones and points of interest. You'll face rival runners in zones of up to 18 players, countless security forces, and otherworldly threats.
This is okay.
To scavenge the remains of a lost colony for glory and fortune. The environments of Tau Ceti 4 are filled with weapons, materials, and equipment you can scavenge throughout
It's the
the
same
map.
as any of these games.
Before deploying, you'll strategically build your loadout and select a runner to ensure you're equipped for the run ahead. Your objective is
So your runner, so this is also class-based, by the way. So like the characters are like, it's like, I don't know like how much of a class-based it is, but yeah, it's Apex. Yeah, I think it's seemingly kind of like Apex, yeah.
Get in,
Archetypes,
gather as
yeah.
much loot as you can, and make it out alive. Die, and all your gear will be up for grabs. Survive, and your loot can be taken into future runs as you grow in power and fill your vault. Death is inevitable, but it's never the end. Think quickly on your feet and outplay your opponents, and in your next run, you and your teammates will be the ones coming out on top. And even if you're down on your luck, factions can sponsor you with a fresh loadout, so you can get right back into the fight.
That's cool. I like that.
Bungie brings its best-in-class first-person multiplayer action to the forefront. Dynamic and tactile gunplay, runners with unique playstyles, and customizable builds create highly dynamic and strategic team fights. Whether you're on a zero-to-hero run or high-rolling with powerful gear, you'll need to use your best judgment when you decide which fights to pick and how. Because no matter how geared you are, players with skill and strategy will always have the edge. Marathon is designed to be played in crews, with contextual pings, shared objectives, and down but not out, to streamline playing with your friends.
I'm not sure if making people play in a group is a good thing.
Is not the end. And if you're the last one standing, you can overcome the odds to revive your teammates and get out with your hard-earned loot. And if you believe your skills alone are enough to conquer any challenge, we give you the freedom to opt out of crew fill to take all the glory for yourself.
Yeah, this game is dark and darker.
No two runs in Marathon ever play out the same. With dynamic events, variable weather, and unpredictable players, you'll have to adapt on the fly if you want to survive. Each run has a time limit, and anything can happen while you're chasing your objective. Looking to unlock upgrades or increase your faction reputation? Slip into the shadows as Foy and ghost past your enemies. Search the map for rare materials and profit opportunities without being discovered. Want to push enemy teams and steal their loot? Bring in Glitch with agility implants and your strongest weapons.
That's kind of cool.
To disrupt rival crews. Running support for your friends? Grab extra equipment, shield charges, and a specialized backpack to be the lifeline they need. You're always free to experiment with team compositions, and the only limit to how you want to play your runner is your loot and
His name's
imagination.
John Marathon.
Endgame challenges, ranked play, discovering secrets, seasonal storytelling, community events, and more all await you in Season 1, where you and your friends will start to unravel the mysteries of Tau Ceti 4. Remember, you're only ever one run away from your next big score.
All right, we got one more. Let's take a look at it. All right, this is a gameplay reveal. Let's watch this one. This one got really bad ratings. Here we go. Now, Marathon was their old game. They made it for the Mac back in the 90s. A lot of people probably don't know that. It was a real long time ago. It was before they made Halo. That's kind of cool.
The end of all things. But the dream is not over. My dream. Yours. Now.
This is, I like that. That's cool. That was cool too. I think what really matters the most, and this is what. I'll just let it finish. Gotcha, bitch. So, thoughts on the game, opinions, etc. What do I think? I'm gonna just play while I talk about it. Actually, you know what? I think it was there was a video of like Shroud talking about it. I'll listen to what he says too, because he's like, you know, the guy, right?
This is the epitome of what happens every single time. You come in, whether you're a AAA dev or an indie or whatever, you try to come into an extraction game and you try to make it and you try to remove the friction. There's a lot of friction.
He's going to say that the friction is what makes the game interesting.
In a game like Tarkov, there's a lot of like
by removing it, it's going to be an empty experience, I bet.
That might not want you to open up the game ever.
Yeah.
Hundreds of bullet types.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of individual items. Quests that don't tell you at all where to go.
Yeah.
No map. I mean, the weapon attachment system is like, what am I doing? Right? So much friction. There's so much friction to play Tarkov. Most people don't even open that game. But that friction is what makes the game so popular to its core audience. So it's weird.
Path of Exile has the same situation.
Come in, you're a new dev or a AAA dev, whatever, and you want to remove the friction? Great. You remove the friction, the game is smooth, the game's easy to play, anyone could just click play and just be right in it. But they only play for a couple weeks or a month, and then they're like, well, there's nothing left to learn. Well, yeah, that's because you just removed all the friction. All the friction's gone, all the tooltips. Like, for example, a perfect example is this, yeah? On this screen, you see every single item and its value.
Yeah.
You don't learn the value as a player. You instantly are told what it's worth.
He's right about this. That's like a vector of difficulty that the player then achieves that's taken away from them when there are values assigned. He's right.
Is a developer coming in and saying, we're going to remove the friction and remove the complications of like the complexity of like seeing an item and being like, what is this? We're just going to tell you what it is. It's worth $1,000. That's it.
Yeah.
Great if you're playing the game for the first time. Bad if you're playing the game for
50th time.
The 1,000th time.
Yeah.
Because what makes extraction shooters good and interesting is giving that player the knowledge, the tools to like learn the game themselves, figure out what a pack of cigarettes is for. And I know it's really stupid, and nobody thinks like that. Most people...
No, the most patrician game developers understand and respect this. That's why you look at like, you know, like the way that Miyazaki designs games like Elden Ring and the way that Classic WoW was designed is that it's designed with these things in mind. And there's like an element of good friction and bad friction. And one of the best examples of, what do you call it? The best examples of like this being bad is like retail WoW, especially during like the Legion BFA era, where developers knew that friction was needed in order to create a good experience, but they couldn't intuit what that friction was and why it was valuable. Bad friction equals world quests. Now, what makes extraction shooters fun is absolutely murking fools and the stress of getting out with your loot. Yeah, but there's like different, like, so like game knowledge, player knowledge, and everything. And this is something that's like, this might sound weird, but bear with me for a minute. Making knowledge more of a component of the game makes it easier for hardcore players to maintain relevancy without having to have like Twitch reactions and keep up with the skill cap of the game. Because like a good player can still outmaneuver a better player if they have high game knowledge.
People are like, just tell me what the pack of cigarettes are for, man. But what's fun about extraction shooters is when they don't tell you.
Yeah, I think also like making everything kind of a mystery that's discovered is very important. And I kind of completely agree with Shroud here. And I think that in general, the gameplay for this seems okay, right? I mean, like, I think that really what's going to define this game as being good or not isn't anything that we can really see and observe right now in the trailers. I think that like you're really going to have to play this game and see how the different missions are, because a big problem that a lot of like BRs and games have is that after you do a few runs, it feels like every single run is the same. And like the game that really does the best job at fighting against this is Fortnite. Fortnite does an incredible job at always reinventing itself and creating new metas and new ways of playing the game. And I think that if you compare that with other games, like, for example, Warzone or even PUBG to a lesser extent, the meta for the game is pretty much discovered, and the way of playing optimally is pretty much discovered quickly, and then it's kind of over. And I think that's really what the problem is. Watch the cinematic. Oh, I already saw the cinematic, exactly. And Fortnite removed friction in BRs. Well, Fortnite removed certain types of friction in BRs, but it added other friction. So like it removed the friction of finding weapon attachments, but it added the friction of building. So like there was like no net change. And if anything, Fortnite has more friction because of the different like difficulties, right? But I think that really a game like PUBG, the reason why PUBG was really popular too, is because you could be kind of mediocre at the game, but you could still come out ahead if you knew what you were doing. And I think that's really the difference that a lot of these games don't really have now, is that they don't have ways. A lot of these games kind of get caught by like sweat entropy, where you have people that start playing the game really seriously. And because they're playing it so seriously, they completely dominate lobbies. And when they're dominating these lobbies, average players can't come into the game and succeed or do anything. And so that's really, I think, where the big problems are, is that like you need to have games that find ways to overcome that skill entropy. And I don't think that skill-based matchmaking is the solution to that. I think it's one tool that you can use. But the problem still remains, is that when somebody gets outplayed on like such a massive level, especially whenever there's like different like levels of complexity like Fortnite, people like that get discouraged and they lose interest. And so I think really we're going to have to play this game and see kind of like what the use case for the game actually is, rather than just kind of writing it off. Because I feel like Dark and Darker is a really great example of this, is that I don't know if I ever told people this. I know it's Tips did, is that we actually declined Dark and Darker for the OTK Games Expo, the first one that we did, because we thought the game was garbage. And there are a lot of games that look like garbage, but they're actually really fun to play. And there's also the opposite of games that look amazing, but they play like garbage. For real, yeah, big mistake there, right? But my point is that it happens very often. And I'm very, very concerned about this. I am like worried that, you know, they're not really going to understand what makes this genre interesting. And again, like I'm speaking kind of as an outsider for this because like I'm not like a really big like extraction shooter guy. I generally don't like games where you can make negative progress. It's just demotivating for me, just personally. But in a general sense, this is the way that I feel about it. You missed a gameplay video, watch the raw footage. Oh yeah, well anyway, I can look at least a little bit of the raw footage. Like I don't want to go through like everything, but we can go ahead and at least look at some of it, right? And so, yeah, this is just some of the gameplay here, right? And so, game subjects, alpha states sort of change. Yeah, not really a big surprise. These are the different characters that you're playing, right?
Everything is breakable. So let's break it.
Yeah, it does feel like they basically turned... Like, they've made it very much into Void looks badass. I don't think that any of the characters are really that interesting or cool. Like, honestly, if I look at this... Oh, it doesn't work with this. If I look at this right here, what game do you think this reminds me of? We all know. It's Concord, right? This is some Concord level design. It is. Sorry, but that's the truth. Is this game gonna be the next really big game? I think if it's designed in like a really good way, it could be really popular, but it's not like crazy amazing. It just seems like kind of okay, right? The game isn't free to play, it's doomed. Yeah, and this is another component to it is that, and if I look up Marathon, here we go. Marathon is Alpha's application, completely unnecessary gender identity question. It doesn't matter, male or female. So we'll look at some of the people and like what people have been talking about with the game, because obviously that matters a lot too. And so anyway, you've had a lot of people that have been pretty negative about it, right? This is beautiful, this is not. I mean, again, making characters that look really weird like this, I do think it's over-designed in a way that doesn't really appeal to anyone. I do, right? It's kind of hot. Yeah, I don't know about that. Really kind of depends. But like in a general sense, I think that Western game developers, and this is just like a huge problem, Western game developers are like almost afraid to make conventionally attractive female characters. And so they make these characters that have like kind of like a very like this is like a rave girl personality or some other variation of that. And they're not just using a traditional, you know, take a hot girl with decent proportions with a pretty face and just go with that, right? And so, right, it's very androgynous. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the female characters that are made in like Western development studios do have like an androgynous vibe to it. And I find it to be kind of off-putting. And I think it's like, it's really a big shock when you see it compared to like something like Marvel Rivals, because I think Marvel Rivals, the style quality and everything is just a lot better. Like this is okay, but I just don't really see this being, I don't see this being appealing, right? Like, I mean, this isn't like, I don't see people wanting to cosplay these characters. I don't see people like really being that interested in them at all. They don't have like a, they're not compelling in a way. So yeah, I mean, I think that's like, that's the main thing that I usually go by is you know, you take a hot girl with decent proportions, with a pretty face, and just go with that, right? And so, right, it's very androgynous. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the female characters that are made in, like, Western development studios do have, like, an androgynous vibe to it, and I find it to be kind of off-putting. And I think it's, like, it's really a big shock when you see it compared to, like, something like Marvel Rivals, because I think Marvel Rivals, the style quality and everything is just a lot better. Like, this is okay, but I just don't really see this being, I don't see this being appealing, right? Like, I mean, it just isn't, like, I don't see people wanting to cosplay these characters. I don't see people, like, really being that interested in them at all. They don't have, like, a, they're not compelling in a way. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's, like, that's the main thing that I usually go by is, like, are the people, like, will people cosplay these characters? Maybe this one a little bit, but probably not even that. And so some of the other armored characters are pretty decent, and you see, like, a lot of comparisons of this as well. But yeah, just I just, yeah, if you want a hot girl, just make one. Yeah, it's just not, it's a little bit weird, right? And people will cosplay Concord characters as a joke. She looks like Yolandi Visor, the one in Die Antwoord, I think it's the band. If I'm thinking of the person you're thinking of, but yeah, that's, I mean, I can see why you say that for sure, but and John Concord, yeah, exactly right, but just okay. Anyway, so in general, I think that the character design is, again, I can definitely see why people are comparing it to Concord. It's very, it's like, it's weird in a way. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it's like, I don't know why, like, American game studios have such like, I think the reason why, and, like, maybe this is just, like, me, like, you know, every problem looks like a nail, but, like, I think the reason why is because they don't want to push traditional beauty standards with games, and so they try to create these, like, weird androgynous characters that are still compelling, and I just think that doesn't land with a lot of people. It doesn't land with people, it doesn't resonate with anyone, and I think it's weird. There's no grit to it. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if you, like, in my opinion, like, there are some exceptions, but I think that as a general rule, if you can't tell what gender a character is, you've made a mistake. You've made a mistake. It's nobody wants to see that. People are not interested in that. Like, yeah, you should have some femboys and some some, you know, like, femboys and tom girls, like, yeah, for sure, a little bit, but in a general sense, it's just not something people are very interested in. They're bots. Well, I'm not really saying about the bots. Well, what about yourself? There are no gender? No, people identify, and they're going, like, these characters are absolutely gendered characters. And this is the problem, is, like, if you, the fact that you think that there's even a discussion about that shows that there's a big problem. These are absolutely gendered characters, and everybody is going to play it with that mindset, like, in the front of their mind. And so if you don't do that, yeah, 2B's an android, but people can tell what gender she is. Yeah, exactly, right? And so, again, I just think that if you make characters like this, they're going to be very unappealing, and people aren't going to really resonate with them at all, and it's off-putting. And I think that's another really big component to it that a lot of people might not understand, is that when somebody sees a character design that looks weird, like this, for example, I think this is, like, kind of fine, but, like, in general, if they see a character design that looks weird, they won't want to play the game. That's it. They're just not going to be interested in the game because it looks weird. And so, okay, screw it. Yeah, exactly. And again, like, I think that pretty much every single circumstance, it's always a bad idea to make characters that are not conventionally attractive. Because this is, again, this is a shooter game, and shooter games are going to be primarily played by men. So if you're making a shooter game that's primarily made for men, then you should make sure that all of the female characters in the game are fuckable. And I know this might sound crazy to say, but I'm just going to say it. That's what you should do. That's what you should do, because that's what people want to do. That's what girls will cosplay. Girls don't want to cosplay ugly, weird-looking, androgynous, creepy characters. And all of that, like, think about how much advertising Marvel Rivals gets because of how many girls try to cosplay the characters. The girl character in the cinematic is fuckable, though? Yeah, but she could be more fuckable, and that she should have been. And I think that they really missed the opportunity to do that. And everybody thinks that, like, and the reason why I say this is because, like, I'm already assumed to be the king of the incels, right? And so I feel like I can say this and nobody's surprised. The fact is that I'm right. I'm right, even if you don't want me to be right, even if you think that I shouldn't be right, even if you think that this is the wrong way of looking at things, I can tell you time and time again, example and example again, every single time this turns out to be true. And if you're making a game and you want it to sell, you need to follow these principles. And if you don't, you are setting yourself at a disadvantage. And if you want to set yourself at a disadvantage, that's your right to do that. But at the same time, you're setting yourself at a disadvantage. You're half right. Why would anyone want a fuckable character? I just want hot characters to look at and not one to simp after. I think that having a character that's fuckable is one way of saying it, but a better way of saying it is having a character that you feel is visually appealing and visually enticing. And so really the overlap there is almost a circle in terms of a Venn diagram, but the fundamental thing is the same. And so that's really about what it is. It's about being visually enticing or visually appealing. Like Death Stranding 2, some of the characters, like that weird guy with the guitar, he wasn't really fuckable in a way, but I guarantee you there are girls typing on Twitter, oh, I like him, like he's cool, right? Because like even characters that look weird have to have a certain type of positive visual appeal. And I think that that's what no, I'm telling you, I guarantee you that people are saying that for sure. And so anyway, yeah, the fuck you on? I'm on reality. I'm on reality. And I think there's a reason why so many people are responding this way. I am. And you can be mad. People over and over have gotten mad at me for saying stuff like this. But every single time I've been proven to be right. Every single time. But anyway, again, all of this will be secondary to the game being good. Right? Like if the game plays well, it will be able to overcome any visual problems or anything like that. So we'll have to wait and see. Any demos or anything like that for this game, I will absolutely play. So we'll just have to wait and see when it actually comes out, right? Telling someone to speak English.
You may have filmed some of this interaction with the mayor.
Yeah, filming the interaction.
Because if you do, that would be really handy for us. But apparently during some conversations between yourself, apparently you have alleged, we weren't here, so I don't know who said it, but you've alleged to say, speak English, or what's that effect?
Speak clearly.
Speak clearly.
No,
okay.
the gentleman's partially deaf.
Yeah, he can speak clearly. Yeah.
So I couldn't even hear him.
No, and that's fine, and that's why we've just come to speak, because potentially someone could perceive that as a hate crime.
What kind of retarded bullshit are they on over there? Holy fuck, where does this come from? What the fuck are y'all doing? What caused this? I'll tell you what caused this. Karens. Karens caused this. Karens, complainers, and retards caused this. That's who causes it.
Did we just know this was going to happen, didn't we?
Bro, he thinks it's funny. This guy says, what the fuck?
I believe this, then we need to look at it, because someone's potentially reporting.
Man, I sure hope nothing bad ever comes of this. I sure hope that the citizens don't go and do the obvious fucking thing that everybody knows they're gonna do, and everything's gonna be worse for everyone because of it. This is insane. It's fucking crazy that this is even happening. They are absolutely, like, eventually there is going to be Chancellor Sutler incoming. Yes, they are going to have some super fucking racist right-wing person come into this country eventually, and they are going to win by a landslide. I can guarantee it. Like, this kind of bullshit is not gonna last. So many people are fed up with this, and it's gonna hopefully, yeah, and as soon as that happens, it's gonna happen everywhere else too. And so can't wait to see it. I can. It's gonna be bad. Like, the problem is that it's bad that that would happen, but the reason why it's going to happen is because any reasonable conversation about this has been shut down. And so, like, this is the problem, is that when you make reasonable discourse impossible, you make unreasonable discourse inevitable. And so what's going to happen is that these people that are, like, getting charged with this shit and getting in trouble with this shit, these people are going to get radicalized. This is a radicalization moment for a lot of them. And when it happens, guess what? They're not going to be sorry at all. The truth can't be kept. Yeah, eventually people are going to lose their minds about this, and they're going to get really fucking upset. So, yeah, you can't just let it happen. Well, it won't just happen. That's the problem. And people are going to get really fucking pissed. And I bet they already are, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's all fun and games until they organize. Yeah, these people absolutely will organize. And when they do, they will do it with a degree of resentment that will shock you. Like, it is going to be like an insane amount of frustration these people are going to have, and it's going to be bad for, I think, pretty much everybody involved. And so, yeah, good. Well, you say good, but this is, I guarantee you, every time that you have an extreme thing like this that happens, you know, every action requires or, you know, causes an equal and opposite reaction. It's just going to be stupid in the other direction, right? It's not like, you know, they're going to vote for somebody and then everybody's going to be smart again. And it's going to be like, you know, the new coolest guy in the UK is Isaac Newton again. That's not what's going to happen. It's just going to be a new brand of bullshit. And so I find it to be very frustrating. I do. You asked for one Hitler, you're going to have 10 of them? Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and stop you right there. I didn't ask for Hitler. Okay, before there's another clip that people are using to call me a Nazi, all right? No, I did not ask for Hitler. I said that they're going to make it happen. That's a very, very different thing. So, yeah, very, very big difference. I'm predicting a Hitler. I'm not asking for one. And I wish that we wouldn't have this happen, because these people, it would have never happened if these people wouldn't let this, would have let it get this far. And that's it. I'll read a few more of these. It'll soon be a hate crime in the UK to be a white Brit. This is the way a lot of people feel. And regardless of whether it's true or not, I think people are going to vote based off of it being a reality. And that's scary for a lot of people. It's a very dystopian thing to see an Englishman telling another Englishman that he can't speak English in an English country. Well, I mean, this is the same country that's burned people for being witches and stuff, right? I mean, you know, they had all kinds of like weird religious bullshit. This type of mindset is a religion, by the way. It's the new religion. So all of this type of thinking, etc., this has replaced religion in its entirety. So now everything that people used to attribute to religion, they now go back and attribute to this ideology. The ideology can't be questioned. The people who are acting in favor of the ideology, all of their actions are proactively and retroactively justified because they're doing it against, you know, I guess non-believers, basically. Doing it against non-believers. And big surprise, whenever you create a system that justifies dehumanizing and treating a certain group of people like garbage, it will eventually be used on you. And that's what's going to happen. And I think that's unfortunately the reality that we're coming into pretty soon. America burnt witches, though? Oh, yeah, we used to love doing that. And I think that we'll probably do it again, but we're just that's on cooldown. Basically, like, the more that you understand that censorship Karen rhetoric is the exact same as religious censorship, everything else makes perfect sense. So, for example, a lot of the arguments and a lot of the emotional appeals that are used in order to make people do things today are effectively secularized versions of religious arguments that were used in the 90s and the 2000s. And you're just seeing like a new version of them now, right? I was thinking why they talk just like religious people. Well, the reason why, okay, so I'll explain why. Basically, the reason is because a lot of people need to have a religion in their life. I think that there's a lot of just human beings that need like an ordering principle that decides and helps them understand and process the world, right? And whether this is a religious ideology, whether this is like some extreme political ideology, I feel like if you look at like human history, you'll always find that people tend to gravitate towards, and the ideologies that are like the most pervasive throughout history are the ones that are all-encompassing, oftentimes even transcending life, that allow somebody to order their life and understand it. And so what happens is that when people, like, because of the decline of religion and like Western culture now is seeing like a much more of like a revival of religion. Like, you're seeing a lot more people go to church. You're seeing people that are like more positive about Jesus. And, you know, if you compare this, especially online, if you compare this to, 2012, 2008, right? It was very, very different dynamic, right? Jesus is king. Yeah, I hear this all the time now. And I think that like some of the reasons why, I'm going to be honest, like one of the really big reasons why is that it's a cultural thing. And I think religion and culture are like very much intertwined. Like if you look at, I would assume probably like a lot of Middle Eastern culture is probably either derivative of Judaism or Islam. You look at a lot of Western culture, it's probably derivative of Christianity. And you probably look at, Indian culture, it's probably derivative of, Hinduism. That's just the way it is, right? Of course. And so anyway, when you have a decline of religion, people, it's not like everybody just decides to open their third eye and see the truth and the reality of the world. No, they just look for another book that they can have tell them the answer to everything in their life. And so that's the reason why you see so many people that are like, these like political people that treat their politics like a religion. It's because for them, it fulfills the same purpose. That's it. Hinduism is more of a seeking than a religion. Well, I don't want to get into details, but what I'm saying is that their belief system, whatever that belief system is, probably intermingled with their laws and like their core culture. Like, that's really what I'm trying to say, right? Again, I'm not really a big fan of religion, but I can respect and acknowledge that a lot of people who are religious, it helps them and it's a positive force in their life. I hate religious fundamentalism, and I hate religious people that try to push their beliefs on somebody else. But I can respect a person who has a religion that they keep to themselves and they don't use as a weapon to oppress other people. So, like, that's the way that I feel about it, and that's pretty much about it, right? CNN, I know, investigates the rise of extremism in the United States. Oh, good.
Let our people go!
Guys can protest and say whatever you'd like from the comfort of the sidewalk and the car.
Trump is your president! Some prisoners!
Please do not try and come across the street.
Tony, I'm right behind you. There we go.
This is your enemy list.
This is the deep state target list. Just a portion of it.
Who's target number one?
There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles that sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels.
This is like McDonald's making a show about why are people so fat? Why is everybody so fat and unhealthy now? How the hell did this happen?
I'm not sure yet if you are or are not on the deep state target list, because I haven't consumed all of the information that you've put forth to determine what your status should be.
Well, we've been hanging out
as we ruin you.
Oh.
As you what?
Oh.
What's your documentary about? Oklahoma City, or is it about Waco?
Well, it's about extremism in America.
I love how there's the implication that these different terrorist acts are being carried out by these people. Like there's any link at all between like the psychotic Waco cults and like fucking Trump supporters. It's crazy. Like the level of messaging here is unbelievable.
Okay, so stop talking to me.
My fans would love if I talked you out, but I can't do it.
So you could make the gun.
And then you have the implication, in order to create the parody of violence between a person who's willfully engaging in physical combat in a safe space in a ring with somebody else who's consented. And this is, I'm sure, going to be juxtaposed next to like people destroying Teslas and destroying property in order to show that, wow, look at this dangerous right-wing person. Like, cause I have to watch more of these because somebody needs to get the information out there with how absolutely fucking deceptive this is. I love lying to people. I love misleading them. I love tricking them. This is something I used to do all the time. And I would do this so much. And so I see this happen and I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing here. I know what you're doing here. I see where this is going. Yes. And wow, I did this all the time. Yes, and so that's the thing. You still do. I never lie anymore. I never lie. Of course not. And so I can recognize a lot of this, and I think a lot of other people don't.
So you could make the gun and the suppressor in a day.
3, 2, 1.
That's true.
I just don't like to told you're not allowed to talk to this person. Like, why can't I talk to him?
There's a growing number of folks that want maximum punishment. Maximum punishment.
I think most people feel...
Well, yeah. And I love how also there's like a juxtaposition of like Luigi as if he's even talking about Luigi. It's probably not even about him.
Like violence is justified in certain instances.
They're dangerous individuals. Back up.
The only people that are supporters of Luigi are mentally ill women who are attracted to him. Nobody else is a supporter of Luigi.
America's founded on violence.
We have to fight back.
They want somebody to take on the system.
Right. Misinfo Nation Extreme America. Misinfo Nation. This is made by CNN. I can't wait to watch this. The whole story. I'm sure we're going to get the whole story. There's an extra to the docket. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Ooh.
The January 6th.
Of course. Of course. Back to the original sin. Yep, there we go. Something new and different.
Insurrectionists betrayed our country. Traitors! Traitors! Cowards! Traitors! Ashley Babbitt was a domestic terrorist! Traitors! Get out!
Ah, there we go. With the Capitol in the background.
The tree.
They're so
General
stupid,
Flynn
huh?
unmasking, impeachment hoax,
Damn.
2020 election.
People losing their fucking minds.
This is your enemy list.
This is the deep state target list. Just a portion of it. Some of the high value targets, if you will.
What is this here? Biden laptop, January 6th, 2020 election, retribution tour. Oh, Mike Pence is on the list.
Who's target number one?
I'd probably say Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
Yep.
Ivan Raiklin is a far-right extremist.
Of course.
Yeah! Just hit the deep state, right in the heart.
So who do you think was ultimately responsible for the attack on the Capitol?
So I would say probably me. I'm the one.
President Trump retweeted a memo from an individual named Ivan Reich.
Oh my God. It's all going back to January 6th. Am I the only person that, like, can't we move past this? Everybody knows January 6th was bad. Anybody who thinks January 6th wasn't bad is just, they've been completely consumed by propaganda, right? They've totally left reality. You shouldn't be taking them seriously at all. What is this? Yeah, it's insane. I'm tired, bro. Yes, it's like the same thing every single time. 4 years ago. Holy fuck, man. Republicans fully support January 6th? No, they don't. How many of you guys voted for Trump and you thought January 6th was stupid? Yeah, this is this total false narrative. Yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? It's their 9/11?
Entitled Operation Pence Card, that called on the vice president to refuse the electoral college votes from certain states that had certified, that called on the vice.
What's wrong with this person saying this? There's nothing wrong with him saying this. This is just some schizo on Twitter that wants the election to get overturned. Oh, we're really going to act like this is some kind of like grand threat? It's just some schizo on Twitter.
Vice president to refuse the electoral college votes from certain states that had certified Joe Biden as the winner.
So my legal strategy forced Nancy Pelosi to conduct the deliberate breach and facilitate the deliberate, incited entrapment of January 6th. That is why I'm responsible. Exposing the Nancy Pelosi Fed insurrection of January 6th.
He promotes the conspiracy theory that January 6th was a setup.
Some people call it a entrapment.
Well, isn't it defined that they intentionally didn't have extra people there, even though they wanted to have extra people there? And isn't it also defined that there were federal agents in the crowd? Like, I thought both of these things were, like, agreed upon facts. And also, that doesn't make January 6th okay. That's the problem, is like, and this is the issue, is that like people like this can never have an honest conversation because they're too focused on scoring points for their side and not in engaging in a degree of like rational discourse. Like, for example, just because there aren't a lot of police there doesn't mean that it's okay to break into the building. Just because there's a federal agent in the crowd doesn't mean that it's not your fault when you decide to break a window because the federal agent tells you to. But these things are like, why can't people just look at reality? I don't understand this. I don't get it at all.
A Fed insurrection, a parliamentary coup.
Your shirt. It has a list of names of the Retribution tour.
And he's got a retribution list.
The Biden laptop cover-up, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah. For those he believes have wronged President Trump and the American people.
Of course.
Jim Clapper, right? Mike Hayden, Brian Kemp, Brad Raffensperger. The list goes on and on.
I prefer the term retribution. Liz Cheney, we're coming for you. Adam Kinzinger, we're coming for you.
You mentioned Pelosi.
I love how like they create this parody between like this guy and like, for example, the people that are burning down Teslas, because like this guy is just swimming and like running around and talking. And then like the people that are at like, there's never been a single clip of him being violent, destroying anything, breaking the law, or even being physically aggressive towards anyone. It's just simply him talking and saying, in my opinion, kind of crazy stuff for sure. But, you know, he's not really doing anything wrong. But because you're playing this like scary music behind it, this is supposed to be comparable to people that are, you know, supporting a murderer with Luigi, which is, again, I think kind of just like a schizo movement. It's not really worth taking seriously. But the people that are destroying Teslas, I think, is very legitimate. I think it's very problematic. Is he wrong, though? I mean, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with what he's saying. Sure, he can say whatever he wants. I don't agree with all of it, but I mean, he can say whatever he thinks.
What do you think she would be charged with in this scenario?
I mean, it's a simple statute. This is treason. Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to see at the end of the due process, lawful capital punishment.
Will you be disappointed if in 12 months from now somebody hasn't been executed for treason?
I think the nation will be furious.
He says even I could be a target.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big fucking difference. Like this is, and this is, again, this is the false equivalency that these people create, is that this person is advocating for an extreme judicial process whereas other people are advocating for vigilante justice and terrorism. That's a very big difference. He's saying that he wants people that he thinks committed treason to be tried for treason. Other people just want to kill you. That's the difference. It's a massive fucking difference.
I'm not sure yet if you are or are not on the deep state target list, because I haven't consumed all of the information that you've put forth to determine what your status should be.
But we've been hanging out
as we ruin you.
Yeah.
As you what?
Just like you ruined us. An eye for an eye. Look up Leviticus as a Christian man.
We have a problem with Jewish supremacy. We have a problem with a Jew.
Oh, here we go. Here is again, it's again the implications, right? All of the implications, as in, and by the way, a lot of people hate CNN. Like a tremendous amount of people hate CNN. And it's like, now you have a guy, let's take a look. How many people are watching this? Like, well, I can't even really tell because it's like super low quality. It says restreaming now, maybe 17K people have watched this. Oh my God.
Jewish occupation in our government.
Technology has transformed extremism in America.
It's your body, my choice.
A fire hose of hate is served to millions of us every day.
Yeah.
They are reviewing a purported manifesto.
Mass shooters publish manifestos online.
An absolute racist hate crime.
This is God's country.
Election deniers stream.
Again, it's January 6th again. And you'll notice this, that every single clip of like this right-wing violence, every single one of them is going to go right back to January 6th. And the big reason why is because when like one of these like mass shooters goes out and they like kill a bunch of people and it's turned out that they're a Nazi, nobody that's like conservative or right wing goes and makes excuses for them and says, well, you know, you have to look at like what his, you know, socioeconomic status was. Well, you have to see, you know, he was treated this way in school. They're like making excuses. Yeah, they do. Well, I mean, of course, there's a handful of people that do. Of course, you're right about that. But those people are radical extremists and they don't represent anybody else. And they are the very fringe minority, and most everybody else pushes away from them. That's the difference.
Live as they attack the U.S. Capitol.
The problem isn't, and this might sound odd, is that the problem isn't the violence itself. It's the culture that enables and justifies it. That's really the problem. Because, like, I look at it as, like, you know, it's the difference between, are you against the cookie or the cookie factory? Well, if you want to get rid of cookies, you don't get mad at cookies, you get mad at the factory that's making the cookies, right? It's the factory that's doing this. And so the culture that enables this and justifies it and tries to run defense for it, they're the ones that are really wrong. Trump seems to enable this, though. I don't know. I've never seen Trump say that it's okay to be violent towards like somebody, and Trump is like multiple times like what are you talking about? When has he said that? Trump denounced it immediately. Yeah, he said to stop and to go home immediately on that day.
The fringe is going mainstream.
And Trump is here to take down those satanic cabals.
Yep.
Pedophiles. You know this already.
With the cute military army.
Save the children!
Some believe we are on the brink of a totalitarian state.
Who actually runs the government?
Some believe our government is totally controlled by corporations or a cabal.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that believe that. That's true.
And some see themselves as crusaders in a fight for good versus evil.
Let's be the American people spreading the word of God.
So I've set out on a journey across the country to meet the Americans waging this battle.
This is basically the Mangione gun.
To find out if we really are getting more extreme.
Hey, he's got the right idea.
Or is the extreme just getting louder?
Hey, get out of here!
We're not finished yet. We got a long way to go. But we're doing this on the very first day in office, and in just a few moments, I'm not only signing the release of the J6 hostages, I'm signing other things that...
It's, again, bro, like, they cannot let this shit go. They keep talking about the same exact thing. Why should we? Because it's already over. It's over. It's already happened. Most reasonable people agree that it's wrong. That's it. Like, it's done. Like, for how long are you going to keep bringing up an event that lasted for a handful of hours? What is this? Like, I mean, people are so fatigued from hearing about the same event being used to compare to 50 other things that are bad. We never reconciled with it. A lot of people do not think it's wrong. We still talk about 9/11 in Oklahoma City, W. If somebody is using 9/11 as a reason to justify extremism and military action in the Middle East at this point, they would be considered a retard. Like, people are way past that. They are. And here's the reason why they keep fixating on January 6th. It's because they use January 6th as a comparison point for every other form of political violence. That's the reason why. It's the only point of it's the only really strong point that they have. So everything is referenced back to that.
You're going to love, oh, you're going to be happy reading newspapers tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day.
Release those prisoners!
DC Gulag, let our people go!
You guys can protest and say whatever you'd like from the comfort of the sidewalk and the park. Please do not try and come across the street.
It's inauguration.
Wow, look at that. Trying to follow the law. What a surprise.
In Washington, D.C. And we're outside the D.C. jail where people have been gathering for almost...
See, am I the only person that, like, whenever I see people that are, like, crazy and they're not doing anything wrong, like, I don't really see that as a problem. But whenever I see people that are crazy that are doing things wrong, that's the problem. And I feel like this is, like, it's such a deliberate misrepresentation.
3 years to campaign for the release of January 6 convicts.
And for the news who wants to know, is it going to be the violent ones? It's going to be all of them, folks.
I have faith in my heart, brother, that all of you are going to be getting those calls from your attorney real soon.
Sherry Hefner is one of those campaigners. She takes calls nightly from imprisoned January 6ers.
What I can tell you guys is this. We are dressed. We have our bags packed. We are ready to go.
Oh my God.
At the same time, I was receiving
Why
a
are
call.
there so many American flags? It's crazy how the American flags have been used. Like, you can tell if it's a left-wing or right-wing protest, because if it's a right-wing protest, you have American flags. If it's a left-wing protest, you have a bunch of, like, identity flags and flags from other countries.
From inside the jail.
It's crazy.
Hello, this is a call from
What are the odds?
Powell.
Are we rolling?
Specifically to Washington, D.C. Central Detention Facility.
Rachel Powell is serving time for attacking the Capitol with a pickaxe on January 6.
Yep.
Hey, this is Dooney.
This is Donnie. How are you?
I don't know because I'm still in here. But I was told that with him signing the pardons today, that I should be out tonight. But I'm still sitting here, and so I'm nervous.
But not everyone here is excited for the prisoner's release.
Did you ever think we'd be in a place where just hours from now...
I did not think they would get out, ever.
J6ers are going to walk out of here free?
Absolutely not. No. I could not. I would have told you, you're an idiot. That's never happening. But here we are.
Bree Chapman is one of the few signs of the resistance here in Washington on this inauguration.
I find this to be very funny because I don't think CNN realized this. Actually, that's not true. CNN absolutely realizes this. There's smart people that work at CNN. This is probably going to be this is going to create more extremism than anything else really will, is because like this is like the emotional framing, and where it's like, okay, this one lone person that's like standing against these people, it's like they're the resistance, etc., right? And this is the real rise of extremism, is by mainstream media selective reporting, and also double standards that are completely obvious, but they're unspeakable to discuss. Like, you can't discuss these obvious double standards. And that's the big issue. It's giving people a visual. Yeah, exactly. It's gaslighting. It's massive gaslighting. Stop enabling Karens. Well, it's okay for her to do this. Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, Ansrock and Boogo Boys are not real threats. Who are the left-wing equivalent of McVeigh, Dylan Roof, Anders Breivik, or the 8chan guy in New Zealand? Well, the difference is that, so here's the problem, is that the difference is that all right-wing people can come together and condemn any of those people that you mentioned, but left-wing people can't come together and condemn the just unrepentant, regular, like widespread violence towards Teslas and people that are supporters of Tesla or Elon Musk or Donald Trump. So like that's the big difference. Like I agree with you. Yeah, there are bad actors on both sides. For sure there's bad actors on both sides. But what the difference is that there's only one side that's constantly playing mental gymnastics to pretend that they're not bad actors. And I think this is a great example of it, is that this person is the resistance. It's the framing of it.
Nice. She's been counter-protesting at Freedom Corner for years.
I would come down here with a megaphone. I got very personal. There was a lot of protesters for MAGA that would just, say like Trump or generic stuff. But I have spent, I think, going on 3 years focusing on these people.
In 2022, she destroyed a memorial for Ashley Babbitt, who was killed by
This is insane. Who does this? And this is the person who's part of the resistance, who's kicking over flowers at a dead person's memorial? This is the resistance?
Police on January 6th after entering the Capitol.
Mama Mickey, we love you, honey.
Ashley's mother, Mickey, founded the nightly vigil outside the jail.
Where you at, Mickey?
Is the point. Who does that? And again, the problem with this is that she is being framed as the reasonable person, and the other people around her are being framed as the extremists. But I'm sorry, filming a video of you stomping on the flowers of a memorial and then shit-talking the parent of the person who got killed. This is sick. It's sick. It's so weird. Who does this?
To make their life hell.
It's not to make their life hell. They're making our life hell, and they're dangerous individuals. Here he comes.
Who are these guys?
This is Oreo Express. He was actually at the Capitol on January 6th.
He's the one that
and this
threw
is
the flowers away on the Capitol.
Ashley Babbitt, I actually stomped on her memorial. Anyway, this is
Trump. Who does this? Like, I feel like, for example, if somebody had gone and, like, fucked up a George Floyd memorial, I think most reasonable people could say that's kind of fucked up. You shouldn't do that. That's not being a resistance. It's just being a fucking asshole.
Is your president? Trump is your president. J6ers are being parted. J6ers are being parted. Yeah.
There are two groups of people in this world that are the cause of all of our problems.
J6ers are
Are you okay with this?
I'm fine. Let them show themselves.
She's a psychopath.
And here's Ashley Babbitt's mom, Mickey.
They all know that. They've been here. Where you
I know,
been? You're
I know.
late, bitch.
I've been here all day. I was in the bar with you. I was in the bar with you, Mickey. You didn't even see me. I saw you drinking.
Back up.
I saw you drinking alcohol in the bar.
The insults go back.
What?
Back and forth and back and forth.
Talk about stalking. Talk about stalking.
Move.
Before a police officer eventually intervenes.
Thank God.
Is it a trespass order? You know my name.
Yeah, you know my name. Yeah, he does. So this guy has to micromanage these unemployed Karens. And I think this is the real separation here, is that you have the working class and the real middle class that is set. Their job is to mediate these childish, insane disputes between these overprivileged Karens so they don't go and tear each other apart. It's embarrassing.
Sergeant Jackson. For my own safety, that's why we're doing this.
Go take care of your kids!
Despite Trump's orders, it's getting late, and there are no signs of prisoners being released.
We need to get the marshals. The guards inside are threatening force against our men, and they're messaging out, begging us for help.
Tony, I'm right behind you.
Joni O'Sullivan, who's outside the detention center where some people may be released. Joni?
Hey, Anderson, yeah, in the last few minutes, all these demonstrators all rushed towards the main...
Yeah, they're rushing. They're standing in front of the door, protesting outside the door. Yes. And you're playing the dramatic music as if like, okay, oh my God, they're about to siege the Capitol again. Yes, of course. They've rushed the door. Listen, I'm telling you, half of these people on Social Security, they're not rushing anything.
Door of the jail. We're not sure quite what is happening. Some of the people inside this prison are hoping to make it to the inaugural balls tonight. They have been told that if they're released... Yeah, okay. We're going to move down here, Anderson.
Put the press back. Push the press back. Cameras right here. Everybody back up. We're back where we were.
What's happening? Nothing?
You're an hour and a half until this happens, guys. Back up, please. Set it up on the ground. Back up on the ground.
The night went on, but the releases never came.
I was told.
Well, yeah, they weren't able to release everybody because of logistics. Like, it's reasonable that it would take a couple of days to release a bunch of prisoners because there's a process and a protocol for it, and it would take time. This isn't some kind of crazy fucking conspiracy or anything. It's just logistical reality. Of course. Yeah, there's paperwork and a process. Like, they can't just... It's not like this is like in The Dark Knight Rises and all the fucking jail cells let up and they're like, all right, boys, time to destroy everything again. Let me at them. Yeah, it's not like it's Bane that did this.
They'll let us out in the
What's
morning,
going on?
and they have done it tonight.
Is it sinking in now that, you're going to be a free woman soon?
Okay, go back to when you're 6 years old and it's Christmas Eve, and when you wake up in the morning, Santa will have left gifts for you. That's how I feel right now.
Yeah, I'd be happy if I got...
The next morning, Christmas arrived.
Yeah, wow, big surprise. The day after, they let the people go because they weren't able to do it at night for logistical reasons. Wow. What a shock.
Glory! Hallelujah! Thank you, Lord! We always said you're a true patriot. Oh, my goodness.
Across the country, January Sixers were set free. And not just people like...
A lot of them should have been set free. Some of them shouldn't. But the people that just walked inside the Capitol building... If they had been charged for a crime and sentenced, they probably would have been in jail for less time that they spent in jail in the first place. Like, I think that anybody can understand and agree that someone being violent towards a police officer or destroying property or stealing, well, that probably shouldn't have been released. At least a lot of them shouldn't. But the fact is that I know what these charges are in a lot of cases, and usually it's 2 to 5 years. 4 years they were locked away? Yeah, exactly. Like, they act like this is some sort of like you know, deferral of the justice. Like, there's two things, right? Number one, they act like it is a you know, some sort of like misuse of the justice system, which is it's not. It's simply the way that the president executes pardons. That this is always how it's worked. It's literally the game mechanics. And number two, a lot of these people, yes, they should not have done that, and I think I have no problem with them spending some time in jail. But if they had been charged for this crime, they would have already been out by now. Both things are true. Pardons are just retarded. Yeah, I mean, you could say that, right? But it's still the game mechanics, right? That's still the way it works.
Rachel, but leaders of extremist groups, Proud Boys, 3%ers, Oath Keepers.
I feel vindicated and validated.
Many with no plans of going quietly into the night.
What is the implication of that? That, like, they're going to go siege the Capitol again? That they're going to go and, like, be terrorists? Or they're going to go destroy a bunch of stuff? Like, they wouldn't go quietly into the night? What do you mean? So what is that? What are you saying by this?
The dream team, we're back.
The worst thing they did was put us in prison, because I'm now friends with all the gangster disciples, the Bloods, Crips, all those guys in prison. They love us.
Big O's back.
I hate to tell you guys this, but I had a friend that voted for Trump from prison. And there were a lot of other guys that were in prison that voted for Trump. A lot of them. Felons? Yep. Absolutely. Lining up to vote for Donald. Felons can't vote? No, they can in some places, not in others. I thought that too, and then because he's a felon, so I'm like, how the fuck did you vote? And so I looked it up and I found out.
People say you're the guy that put your feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk. It's just not true. I put it on the people's desk. Amen.
I got a criminal news network photographer, maybe a reporter. I wanted to ask you, sir, your buddy Donnie.
I'm working here.
Is he still in the ER?
And for at least one man,
you are now on my radar.
it was a sign that the retribution was about to commence.
I'm going to be scrutinizing you.
I love how, like, this entire thing is that, like, you know, you have MAGA Rorschach, that you have, it's basically like the entire story is built around him being this, like, crazy person. And, like, yeah, he's kind of a fucking idiot, right? But at the end of the day, like, he's not really being violent or anything like that. Like, I mean, am I wrong? Really, am I wrong? No, I'm not. And everybody knows it.
To commence.
I'm going to be scrutinizing you.
But at the same time, it wasn't just those on the right celebrating violence.
All women, by the way. I cannot wait to watch this. I'm sure it will be completely unbiased, and there won't be any edge on this at all. Surely they wouldn't just point it in one direction and then misrepresent things. Surely the what do you call it? The video, I'll link it to you guys. And I surely the entire preview is just simply showing one side, and they'll show the other side in the full thing. Sounds like a Free Palestine chant. Well, if you only know one emote, you've got to use it for different reasons. Yeah, there you go. I hate the cadence of the free fill in the blank. Bro, you sound retarded. Yeah, I know. But anyway, I just want you guys to see this. Like, it just came out an hour ago, so, like, I didn't even really know what it was. But, like, you know, I talk about this a lot. I think that nothing facilitates extremism as much as videos like this. I think that videos like this are massively divisive. And I think that they're divisive because of the way that they are intentionally, you know, misrepresenting the way that these things happen. And I think that they are... I think the media very rarely actually, like, publishes, like, you know, if they say something is blue, it's not red, right? But it's maybe a different shade of blue, or it's closer to blue, or they say it's dark blue and it's light blue, or they misrepresent, like, some other variation of it, right? And so that's what I've seen a lot with this kind of stuff. And when I see this stuff, I find it to be very annoying. Like, I really, really hate this stuff all the time. I've always hated it. And so, which guy would you rather have on your side? The guy in a mask crying rivers over the Switch being more expensive, trying to block your path, or discount Rorschach? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't want to see any. I think these people are fucking nuts, right? I mean, that's it. And yeah, it's that simple. But you can see it's like the most unhinged bait for no reason at all. Yeah, it is. And this is what happens. It's very crazy for me to see this, but you can see how it's completely one-sided, except for the very, very end, where they're just showing a handful of people talking about Luigi, and then that's literally it. Like, completely one-sided reporting for this. This was relatively neutral. Well, okay, so when you say that it's relatively neutral, how do you... So, if you're showing a preview of this, what do you think the percentage was of the reporting? Like, for the amount of time that it was... Like, because, you know, like, they're talking about the rise of extremism. What do you think the percentage was between, like, you know, right-wing people that are extremists versus left-wing people? Like, what would you say the percentage was? Well, yeah, they only showed right-wing extremists. It's only a 9-minute video. So if they only showed one group, how is it neutral? How does that work? The second episode? Oh, they haven't had it out yet. Yeah, they said at the beginning it's going to be a full video. Mostly just one demonstration. They also showed a crazy left woman. They didn't frame people very much. You think they didn't frame people? I think they did. I think they did a lot. And I think if you go back and you watch the VOD and, like, the points where I emphasized, I think that they really did try to frame people as much as they could. And so I just want you to understand. So I want to get an understanding of, like, what you mean by it was neutral. I'm not saying it was completely neutral, but they didn't make them out to be monsters. Okay, so then what would you say that... Let me actually read this here. They only showed right-wing extremists. So basically it was all completely one-sided. So when you only show one side of extremism, do you think that that's really making a criticism of extremism or making a criticism of that group? Because I think that you're making a criticism of that group disguised under making a criticism of extremism. That's what I think is happening. Not very much, exactly. And so, relatively neutral, 90% on one side. Are there neutral people, at the protest for the release? Well, no, but they filmed multiple other protests, but they didn't even show any of that. They didn't show any of that. They didn't show any of the Tesla stuff. They didn't show any of the other political violence either. They didn't contextualize this around the BLM rallies that burned down entire cities. They didn't show Chaz. They didn't show any of that stuff. And so when you're selectively showing one group of things and not the other group of things, you are painting a narrative that is intentionally misleading. That's what you're doing. You're controlling the narrative using omission. Yes, not telling people something is the same as they are, of course, biased. So, but they just showed these people peacefully protesting? No, they didn't. The reason why they couldn't show them being violent is because there's not enough clips of it to fit in the video. That's why they had to keep referencing the same event over and over and had to be about January 6th. So you're saying that they're biased. They only showed one side, but now you're being surprised that I hate CNN. Why would I not hate a news website that only shows one side of a conflict and are biased? Even you think they're biased. You're the one saying it. They could have made them seem way more violent. So here's a good question.
for help.
Tony, I'm right behind you.
Joni O'Sullivan, who's outside the detention center where some people may be released. Joni?
Hey, Anderson, yeah, in the last few minutes, all these demonstrators all rushed.
Why do you think they started playing that music there? I think they started playing that music there in order to make it dramatic and make it seem scarier. Because that's what happens. Like, that's the way it is in any game. Like, you look at a horror movie, that's what happens, right? Yeah, it's tense music. It's like a fast heartbeat music. Exactly, it's a hook, exactly. And so anyway, so you hate Fox News? Well, yeah, if I feel like Fox News is misrepresenting something, then yeah, I would say it's bad too. And if I see them doing that, of course I would talk about it. Absolutely. Yeah, and also, like, because in my opinion, you are making a lot more of this than there is. I think that mainstream media is probably the most detrimental and corrosive force in politics. I think that it does more to push people apart, to divide people, to confuse people, and to mislead people than anything else. And when I see websites like this, or I see videos like this, I see the exact same thing happening. It's propaganda. It's intentionally misleading. These are the same people that put a green filter over Joe Rogan because he was taking ivermectin. And you want me to think that, like, I don't like these people. I think that they're dramatically misleading. You're already just as biased as any of those news networks. Who cares? Well, let me ask you something here. We can move past this. Anyway, what do you think that I'm biased about? What is like an example of that happening? Literally everything you read. Can you give me an example? I mean, if it's everything, you might as well be able to pick one thing, right? Why don't you give me a platform to argue? Well, I think it's important to listen to opinions from other people. Yeah, of course. I have no problem listening to other people's opinions. That's okay. Didn't you call it the cats and dogs story and you made fun of the Trump rallies as well? Well, I didn't really make fun of the Trump rallies, but yeah, of course I called out the cats and dogs thing because it was bullshit. What's the logic that they're eating cats and dogs, but they're also being given $3,500 a month on food stamps? Why the fuck would somebody want to eat a dog if they're getting that much money? They're going to eat a steak. It's like it's like they cancel each other out. It doesn't even make sense. Voodoo? There's no evidence of that happening. And also, there's plenty of people that kill cats and dogs for all kinds of like weird Wiccan reasons. That's nothing that's new or unique to Haitians. People do that. People have been doing it. It's very common. People might not have heard this. How many of you guys have heard the advice to hide and like keep your cat inside if it's a black cat on Halloween, because people sometimes take them and sacrifice them? Because I remember like we had 2 black cats and we kept that in mind for sure. Yeah, and like hurt them, exactly. And so like, yeah, we did, yeah, exactly. Bro, you edged every Trump announcement. You think the tariffs are good and nuking a stock market 15% to see it recover 5% is a good thing? Yeah, I think the tariffs are good for sure. I think that these countries, I think, have advantageous trade relationships with us. And I think that a lot of the senators and the politicians that are against the tariffs are in most cases financially invested in the countries and also the companies that are benefiting from the unfair advantage these countries have against the United States. Yeah, that's what I think. And I think also, like, I think it even goes as far as other content creators as well. So, like, a really good example of this is that you had a lot of people that were memeing about Free Luigi, and they were talking about, like, how much they hate corporations. But the moment that Trump did something that actually damages corporations, they're crying about it. It's because they were LARPing the entire time, and they're just saying that to make people like them. But the fact is they're doing it for money just like everybody else. So that's really what I think. The United States is being taken advantage of, but we're simultaneously the world's leading economy. It's not even close. Yeah. So here's the problem. And I'm actually going to answer your question because I think that you're approaching at least like probably 10 to 20% good faith. Is that the United States being the leading economy is not entirely this is not entirely an evaluation of the country as a whole, and it's instead an evaluation of the top 1% of capital owners in the country. So when you look at the stock market going up and up and up, especially like, you know, like 2020 onward, you see all of this growth and all of these gains and profit and money and value and capital, but these are not gains that are realized by the average American. And so that's the problem that I think that you have, is that you're looking at this graph and I'm not looking at the graph. I'm looking at people. And when I see people that can't afford food and I look at the prices of things go up all the time, and then I see the prices of the amount of money that people are being paid that goes up, like, you know, everything goes up by 100% and people get paid 20% more money. Well, then big fucking surprise, things aren't going to go very well. So it means the example is you're the richest, you can't be taken advantage of. Well, I think also, like, in here, it's sarcasm. No, I understand that, but like, I understand that it's sarcasm, but it's actually not. The fact is that you have people in the United States that are also taking advantage of the United States. That's called lobbying. That's the exact reason. That's the whole point, is that these are people who have taken advantage of the country. They've become multi-billionaires. They own these massive conglomerate companies that are also like dictating out like what you can and can't say, etc. That's legal bribing, exactly. And so when you talk about the United States being this massively rich country, you are right on paper. But the fact is that if you look at the backslide of people's individual purchasing power and the difference in like productivity versus wages, you look at the amount of income that's consolidated in the top 1% of people, we have one of the worst ratios in the whole world. And we even have one of the worst ratios, if not the worst ratio in our own history. So yes, it's people in the United States that are taking advantage of it. Absolutely. Gini index, yeah, that's one indicator of that. Worse inequality since French Revolution? I don't know about that, but I know that it's worse than in like the 1920s. I thought this was a biased argument. Well, what I'm saying is that like, but these are objective realities, right? Like it's an objective reality that almost all of the amount of money that was gained after like the COVID, recovery was gained in the 1%. Like it's a factual reality. Like there's no, like, you can debate this, sure, right? But like that's debating like if the earth is flat. It's just simply what happened. And so like that's really it. Yeah, 263% productivity wage since 2000 and a 100% wage increase. Yeah, of course. That's what he called right-wing edge, by the way. Yeah, exactly. Not taken advantage of at all. The trade deficit is on goods only. If you consider services and military trade, it's massive in favor of the U.S. Yeah, but like I don't think that's a good thing. Like I don't feel like, you know, if you take into account the military-industrial complex that doesn't serve any benefit to the average American, that trade is good. Like I don't think that's not a good argument to me as an American. He replied. Okay, I'll take one more response. Average American quality of life is better than anywhere else in the world, brother. Yeah, it's only gotten better over time, regardless of what conservatives are trying their best to make it worse at every point. So I use this example, and I can go ahead and show it again. So if you look at, where is the, was it on here? No, I don't think it was. But anyway, I don't think this is true. And I think that if you ask a lot of people in America, was their life better, like let's say 8 years ago versus now? I think the majority of them would say that it was better 8 years ago. And also when you can see like old TV shows where it's like one guy with like a high school education that was able to support a whole family and afford a house. I don't know how you can reconcile this viewpoint with the resounding frustration and anger that a lot of young people have because they have no purchasing power in the economy and there's never a light at the end of the tunnel. So how is it that you can have all of these young people that were groomed into indentured servitude through student loans, who have no future of any sort of career because it's being replaced by technology as rapidly as possible, and then they're just being told, too fucking bad, you live in the best economy ever? How does that happen? They're being outsourced? Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Those people have a skill issue? Well, if there are so many people that have a skill issue, maybe the country has a skill issue, right? If your country creates outcomes that are not beneficial for the majority of people at a high enough ratio, maybe the skill issue is you. It's kind of like if you have a video game and people keep getting stuck at one part of the game, maybe the reason is because that part of the game is badly designed. What do tariffs have to do with income inequality? I think that basically the lack of like middle-class jobs, I think primarily came through the removal of manufacturing and the ability to basically get a job without having like a 4-year degree. And so like you need people that can have like a 90 IQ and have a good job. And now I don't think that's possible. It destroyed the middle class? Yeah, exactly. Did you really ask that? Yeah. And so this is the big issue that I think a lot of people have, is that like they keep referencing like graphs and shit like this, but the truth is that a lot of these graphs are just simply not representative of what an average person experiences. Jobs won't even pay your degree worth anymore? Well, yeah, because they don't need to, and why would they? That's really the reason why. I think it just makes sense. So yeah, that's the way that I see it. And I don't think, by the way, I don't think that I talk about things in like a right-wing perspective. I actually think that a lot of this, like especially like when I'm talking about economics, if you listen to what I say about the economics, the closest person to what I'm saying is Bernie Sanders. So how am I right-wing here? It doesn't even make sense. What, because I don't like people burning down Teslas? What a ridiculous thing to say. However, the way Trump goes about it isn't professional. It's very hard to justify. Sure, I think you can make that argument. Yeah, sure, that's fine. The issue isn't that Trump isn't wrong wanting to bring manufacturing back to America. Most reasonable people agree with that point, but if force that to occur in a time building infrastructure to facilitate the change, you're doing it at the expense at the same time with the same class that was disenfranchised. I feel like they're already disenfranchised. And I think also he's doing it and incentivizing them. That's why all those companies are talking about building factories in the U.S. And also, by the way, I don't think manufacturing jobs are going to come back. I think that really it's like kind of it's like a smokescreen problem. It's not real because, or it's a mirage, because the closer that we get to like manufacturing jobs, the closer we're going to get to automating manufacturing jobs. Machines will take over. Yeah, exactly. I think you came off as overly defensive about the video. Yeah, I am. I find it to be like, maybe this is like just a personal thing, but I really, really hate the, what do you call it? What's the best way for me to say this? I hate rhetorical manipulation. I do. I really, really, really hate it. And so whenever I hear it being used, I like, it's the same as like, the, clean, beautiful coal and stuff like that. It's disingenuous behavior. Yeah, it is. Exactly. But, yeah, the video is total propaganda. Yeah, I think so. It's insult to intelligence. Yeah, I think so too. Automation manufacturing isn't 100%. Yeah, but it's enough to where like you can't rely on a job to get in that industry, right? That's what I would say. Yeah, you claim to conduct yourself in that manner. You're criticizing. No, I don't think that I do that. Yeah, I don't think that I do. I mean, and again, if I did, I think that you'd have an example of that rather than just saying it in like some abstract sense. It's an insult to people that think that won't see through the propaganda. Yeah, a little bit, right? Definitely. You have a weak spot for right-wing manipulation against the left. Take their videos at face value, but be overly critical about videos like this. No, I think actually like that's not true. But one thing that I probably could emphasize more that's like to your point is that I think that like, for example, like the Doge stuff, I think that there's I don't think that it's just Democrats that are cheating the government, right? It's like, oh, Democrats are stealing all of our money. Of course, that's not what's happening. It's a lot of people doing it collectively. And so, yeah, that's really what I see in most cases. But yeah, I know I think that I could do a better job at saying that like anybody who is doing this, like regardless of like any affiliation, is still bad, right? And that's, I think, the biggest difference.
We've talked on stream a ton about how frustrating the current state of the industry is in many ways. I mean, not just stuff like, you know, cancellations, layoffs, thousands of people losing their jobs because management is idiotic, but also just like even on a technological level, it feels like this generation has been kind of a letdown. You know, like if we get big, ambitious games from first-party studios, a lot of the time they're cross-platform or rather cross-generational. A lot of them are not graphically that impressive. They run like garbage. We just, of course, had the launch of Monster Hunter Wilds, which is sitting at like only at the time of the stream at like 56% positive reviews. Meaning 44% of reviews are negative because of the performance, because it runs so terribly on PC. And it's really frustrating because it feels like at this point in the generation, bear in mind, we're in the year of our Lord Todd Howard, 2025. This generation is going on 5 years. At this point in the PS4 generation, we had gotten like Bloodborne, Uncharted 4, we were on our way to like, I guess, Horizon. We were about to get God of War 2018. We were seeing previews of that. We had just gotten a trailer for The Last of Us Part 2 because they dropped that trailer 4 years early for some reason. Metal Gear Solid 5. Yeah, The Witcher 3. Red Dead 2 was on its way. Yeah, we had Breath of the Wild technically. So like by this point, last gen, we had a ton of pretty heavy hitters. And to be fair, we've gotten a couple. We've gotten, you know, I like Monster Hunter when it is running well. KCD 2, phenomenal. Love that game. That was just, you know, a month or two ago. So I guess a month ago. I've had it for, they gave it to me January 4th. So I've had it for 2 months, but I guess it launched a month ago. But, you know, I at least feel like this generation has not been that impressive, that exciting. And I saw this video pop up from the Digital Foundry guys, who of course analyze graphics and the technology behind these games. And so I'm interested in hearing their thoughts if they think that, as the title describes, our current generation graphics a bit of a letdown, because I feel like this is a sentiment that's echoed by many people, and even in chat right now you guys are expressing similar sentiments, but I'm wondering if that's just the perception but maybe not the reality. You know, it's like when you feel like the world is ending because you're seeing tons of videos of everything, like on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or something, and all the videos are of horrible things happening. But then you remember like, oh no, this is just the bubble I'm being presented. In reality, it's not actually the world's ending. It's just I'm only seeing that stuff. Maybe it's something like that where it's just twisted perception. But I want to hear their thoughts. Let's see.
Quite often in my YouTube recommended feed, I see videos pop up with title like issues with modern game graphics or insert franchise graphics getting worse. What are your thoughts on this phenomenon? Feels like an especially strong feeling this generation that games don't look better than they did last gen, which is wild considering the leap in compute. But I certainly do feel underwhelmed by the performance or visuals of games this generation often as well. The PS5's GPU is far beyond the PS4's, but how often do games look that much better?
I think a lot of this, and we'll hear what they say, but my guess is that a lot of this comes down to where the priority has been. Because I feel like in the PS4 era, the big step up was with scale and scope and the open world trend becoming much bigger than it was in the like PS3 360 era. And so there was possibility for things to take big leaps forward. But this generation, the focus has been on like ray tracing, which is exponentially heavier to run and requires and mandates like upscalers and all sorts of tricks to get it to actually work. And ray tracing just as a function of a graphical equation, like it's just not as impactful as something like physics sim with destructible environments or bigger, more dense foliage and things that are much more easy to spot compared to like more realistic shadows. So I think that's a big part of it, but we'll see what they say.
What do you reckon about this, John? I mean, the phenomenon of this particular type of video is gaining traction, that's for sure.
For sure.
And there is kind of like, what can we say? I think from my perspective, developers are looking to innovate and improve graphics in ways that are quite extraordinary, but beyond the technical leap of the hardware that's been delivered to them. And the result of that is that you get this improvement to visuals, but it does come with a cost, which I think is maybe what's causing this stuff. But I'm curious what you think about this.
Correct. And I think it's a multi-pronged approach. And first, I would say that we are in sort of a state of growth in terms of graphics technology. And this is a state of growth that we've been in many times before, such as when 3D was first introduced to the world. It was very rough early on, but it was a necessary, difficult step to get there. During the PS360 generation, that was also a very difficult time. That was when we saw the rise of modern programmable pixel shaders, vertex shaders, and a lot of other modern techniques, real-time shadow maps everywhere, real-time lighting. But in many ways, it could be argued it looked worse than the generation that came before it. Now I think we're facing a multitude of problems that are all kind of coalescing together to create sort of something that I can see someone perceiving as a step back. First of all,
I mean, real quick, just initially, I like the idea, and I think it makes sense that perhaps we're in a bit of a transitionary period, because I mean, with certain things we clearly are. I mean, ray tracing, love it or hate it, it's the new staple. You know, if rasterized rendering used to be the main way of doing things, now ray tracing is the expected level they want to hit. That's the goal, and you're seeing it you know, even from like NVIDIA, and to a certain extent with NVIDIA and AMD GPUs, whatever they want to focus on is kind of where everybody else has to follow. And it's kind of this dual thing where NVIDIA and AMD are trying to design chips that work with the vision that game designers have, because they want game designers to obviously be able to make the game look great on their hardware that they're selling. So it's kind of this dance between the two, kind of this symbiotic relationship. But if the industry more broadly is moving towards ray trace everything, upscale everything, then that's just what you're going to do. And because we're in the early stages, it's reasonable to expect that it's going to get better, and we will eventually be at a point where its performance is not dog water at all times. But yeah, I guess that's a more hopeful message, as opposed to just publishers are trying to cut corners now.
You look back to say, one example that always springs to mind is something like Uncharted 4. Especially, I'm going to point out there's this room at the end during the epilogue to the game that is often highlighted as like, look at this is amazing. And it absolutely is. The reason it looks so amazing is because they have pre-calculated some beautiful lighting, and that combined with, of course, the artistry of the team that worked on the game, right? So this is like you're starting from this point. You have this beautiful area, beautiful room specifically. So what modern technology is trying to do, obviously, is, okay, can we reach this fidelity, but actually generate it in real time? That's where we're moving towards. But why do you want to do it in real time? Well, one, that makes the actual lighting a lot more flexible in terms of what you can do with it. If it's just a single room like that, that's fine. Maybe you don't need it, but in a lot of cases, it can be very beneficial to gameplay because it allows for a more dynamic scene, especially once you start to tie in actual moving objects, physics-based objects, other enemies. Those things do not integrate naturally within those scenes. So that famous scene at the end of Uncharted, there's really nothing in there except for your character model walking around. And so as a result, they don't have to worry about that, which of course, that opens another can of worms in terms of scoping your project based on what you're trying to do artistically, right? And all throughout history, there have been games that have attempted to push technology in one way or the other, and maybe they don't get the balance right. And they create something using technology that maybe they didn't need in the first place, right? That's a whole separate other thing.
I do think he's right, though. Like, if we're pointing to something like The Last of Us Part 2, which was on the base PS4. I mean, you could play that on a 2013 device. I just wrote The Last of Sus. That's a game I didn't know I needed. Can you imagine? The Last of Sus. Gameplay trailer. Here it is. You look at this. This footage is insane. Even today, if this trailer dropped today in a PlayStation showcase, people would be like, wow, this is going to be one of the best looking games of this year. And this is from a trailer dropped in June of 2018. At this point in the generation, from the PS4 era, okay? This is running on hardware that was considered kind of weak for 2013, okay? It's amazing. Technically, I guess this is running on like a Probably the newer version of the Slim or whatever it was, but still, I mean, graphically stunning. But a lot of the reason they could do this is because they were able to bake everything in, and it works for a game like this because the environment's not changing. If you stay in this level as Ellie and just crawl under the truck and stay put, there is no day-night cycle. You know, the weather's not going to roll in, the sun's not going to rise or set. It is what it is. The level is static, and it works for a game like this because you can bake in all of the lighting and you can set it up this way. But a lot of these games nowadays are focused on dynamics. They're focused on things constantly changing. And the reason they focus on that is because they can with the technologies that have presented themselves with ray tracing and stuff. Something like, you know, even Monster Hunter Wilds with dynamic weather systems, or Assassin's Creed Shadows. The whole focus is on different seasons. So the season changes constantly, which is why they can't just bake in lighting the way that they used to in previous games. And I think that's part of the reason why people are looking at games that are releasing today and then they're like, this game looks better. And it does, but it's because in this game, all of that calculation's been done months ago, years ago, when they were designing the levels and baking all of the lighting in. Whereas nowadays, everything is about real time. And that means that it runs worse. That means that it often looks a bit worse because it just does. But the hope is, and I get what John and the guys at DF are saying, the goal is to eventually be able to get to that level of fidelity consistently with full dynamics. So you could have Last of Us 2 quality, but with full ray tracing and real time everything. So you could have a day-night cycle. You could do all of that stuff and it would be totally fine. So I understand again why, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. With a lot of these games nowadays, I'm like, I would have take your ray tracing. I don't need it. Give me rasterized baked lighting and I'll be happy. But maybe that makes me a boomer.
That's a problem. Part of the problem, though, with that sort of target, moving those things to real time is great. It also facilitates easier development for things like lighting artists and building these environments. But, of course, you know, with ray tracing and all that, it has a computational cost, which we're seeing. And this has never not been a problem on consoles, and it's still a problem on consoles, in that in order to achieve this, you have to make sacrifices. In the past, that would be things like frame rate and just like raw, you know, resolution and such. But obviously there has been a resurgence in, not resurgence, there has been an upswell in this use of reconstruction, temporal anti-aliasing, things designed to sort of minimize pixel popping and improve the overall stability of an image. But in this pursuit of performance using these demanding techniques, I would say a lot of developers do go a little bit too hard on it. And one perspective that, so this means image quality then suffers, right? That is.
And I think especially it's perhaps the force or the bigger problem behind it is that executives and publishers see it as an opportunity to cut corners on polish. Because instead of optimizing your game, you can just shove it out and turn on frame generation, Monster Hunter, and then call it good. Because like, yeah, we technically hit 60 frames. And it's like, did you though? Did you? Like, you're rendering at 25 and then you're inserting these generated frames to hit like 50 something. Your game's not optimized, you know? And as a result, I think you're seeing this thing that leads to situations where devs are not happy with the state their games are in. You know, they're not pleased with it, but executives feel they can get away with releasing it as is. And I mean, Monster Hunter's the perfect example of it. Like, do you really think the devs had no idea the game ran badly on PC and everywhere, frankly? No, they knew. They probably were asking for more time. But Capcom said, no, you're going to release it and people will still buy it. And it seems they were right. People are still buying it like crazy because it just is what it is. Thank you, Kia, by the way, for the sub with Prime. Thank you.
Is the big thing. This image instability. People are picking up on it, and they're not wrong. The rise of these techniques, things like denoising not being great in Unreal Engine 5, especially with like their default denoiser. You know, you have the temporal anti-aliasing issues, you have the upsampling issues. All of these things by themselves can be solved with more input data, but because they're being pushed to this limit, everything kind of gets noisy, right? And this also varies depending on the type of screen you're using. Like on PC, I've had arguments over DLSS before where they're like, oh, I don't like it, it's smeary, it's no.
Yeah, dude, especially when you look at this footage and you compare it to some of those older games, it's just night and day. Like, especially you look at the ground. This is on fidelity mode on the Series S, and it's the Series S, to be fair, but maybe that's a more fair comparison because the Series S is more, it's closer to what like the PS4 was that was running that Last of Us clip we saw. And it wasn't having anywhere near this many problems with things just looking grainy and rough. And bear in mind, Dragon Age Veilguard was actually very well optimized, but it was optimized using these tools that I think leave a bit to be desired.
Noisy. And I'm talking from the perspective of being lucky enough to use a native 4K screen. They're using a 1080p screen. That matters a lot in terms of what the base input resolution is going to be, and it really does impact image quality. So there's that. The other point I would say about visuals as a whole is that this takes people to make. This stuff is generated by real humans. We've reached a point where fidelity is so high in games, and has been for so long, that just creating these assets is extremely expensive and time consuming. And not all artists are the same in terms of their skill set as well. So I saw somebody complaining that something like Avowed didn't look as good as Uncharted 4 or Red Dead Redemption 2, and they were really incensed about that. Like, how can this be a downgrade? This is a new generation.
That is something I've heard too, and it does kind of trigger me a little bit when you're like, hey, this game from a smaller studio is not on par with the game made by, like, 2,000 people in the case of Red Dead, or in the case of like Uncharted 4. Yeah, Uncharted 4 is a graphical powerhouse, but it's also not like a semi-open world adventure RPG. They're different. I think if we're comparing apples to apples in a generation, especially, we should be able to bring up price points and stuff. Because if you're asking $70, but you're not putting forward comparative $70 quality, then I think it's fair to throw a fit. Like Avowed, I think, is a solid game you can have a lot of fun with, especially through Game Pass. I would not pay $70 for it. But on Game Pass, I think it makes a lot of sense. But anyway, that's sort of beside the point. Continue.
But that bumps up against this whole issue with manpower and like what people can realistically achieve and budgets and all these other things. So it's not even the technology anymore that's impacting the visual presentation, right? You can't look at one of the most revered development studios in the world with infinite resources like Rockstar. They were able to pour everything they had into making Red Dead Redemption 2. Most studios could never dream of having that talent of people, that pool of talent, that sort of budget, that amount of time to make these games. And that's what was necessary to get there. So, something like Avowed has to leverage new technologies like, Lumen, Nanite, and what that, to sort of push its graphics game up a bit while still having constraints in other areas. So I think it's just a whole mix of these all issues coalescing together, and the fact that diminishing returns is, I would say, kind of real to a point. And that also ties in again back to the whole real-time versus baked kind of stuff that we've been able to achieve great looking visuals for so long. So, and then lastly, everybody has a different eye for things. Like what my eye focuses on, what Alex, what you see in a scene and what you appreciate can be totally different to what somebody else sees. Like the things that annoy us might not annoy another person, right? Like you have little frame inconsistencies, like little frame time spikes. There's a lot of people that do not care. They don't notice it. That's where the whole runs fine on my PC thing comes from, right? But they might
Thank you. Yes. Because you'll see people who like are playing Monster Hunter and they're like, I can't frankly see the problems with textures. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And it's not that they're like special. It's not that they have a special version of the game. It's that like they just don't notice it. They just can't see it. I was just talking to a buddy of mine the other day, like 2 days ago, and he was saying, I've done the YouTube videos, I've done the side-by-side tests. He's like, I straight up, my brain does not like process the difference between 30 and 60. Like when they're both on screen at the same time, I can tell the difference, but I can't tell the difference if you play a 30 frame clip and then you play a 60 frame per second clip. He's like, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one. I was like, okay. I mean, some people are like that, I guess. I saw it when we were doing demos of like high-end TVs when I worked at Best Buy. in the Magnolia Home Theater, where we had all these demos specific for like selling people on this idea to go and buy the $2,000 TV or the $3,000 or $4,000 TV. It's like, look how much better this screen is compared to this one. Like we would show them an OLED next to an edge-lit TV. Not even like a really backlit TV, but like an edge-lit panel that looked like crap. You know, the kind of TV that like the blacks on screen, if it's got like black bars on the top and bottom of the actual frame, those are like light gray because the lighting behind the screen, or on the side of the screen rather, is so poor. And we would do these side-by-side demos, and every once in a while we'd get somebody that could not tell the difference. Or they'd think that the other one looked better because it was brighter. And it's like, as a TV salesman, it's just the most triggering thing you've ever heard. You show them this beautiful, masterfully crafted OLED panel, and then they're like, I don't know, I like that Toshiba over there that you have on clearance. I think that looks better. And I'm like, get out of here. Get out of my face. Get out of my sight. But some people are like that. They just straight up can't tell. Or they don't care.